Good morning and welcome to the third annual Technology First Conference hosted by the Delaware County Board of Developmental Disabilities. Thank you so much for taking time out and being here with us today. My name is Chase Waits and I'm the Community Relations Specialist here at DCB-DDD. I'm also the chair of our Technology Committee, which planned and prepared this conference for you all today. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. We will be recording this and it will be available on our YouTube channel later today. If you have questions during any of the presentations, please type them into the question box on your Zoom control panel. To share a little history about how we got here, back in 2013, Ohio became one of the first states to add remote support services to its home and community-based services waivers. In May of 2018, then Governor John Kasich signed the Technology First Executive Order, making Ohio the first state in the country to place an emphasis on expanding access to technology for people with developmental disabilities. That executive order aimed to help people learn about how to use technology to improve their quality of life and how they can experience more independence and personal freedom. Assistive technology became a separate waiver service in 2019, joining the remote support service to link people with technology that can meet their needs. The purpose of this conference today is to share how technology really can be used to support people of all abilities to be as independent as possible. We have some really great presentations to share with you today. We'll start off by hearing from Rooney Patel from Microsoft. After that, Howard Wood from Drive Ohio will share some of the innovations that are happening right here in Ohio to transform smart mobility. And finally, we'll have a panel discussion from Ohio's tech ambassadors to hear about some specific ways that people use technology to increase their independence. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rooney Patel from Microsoft. Rooney is currently working as an enterprise training associate at Microsoft. A 2020 graduate of York University in psychology, she also has a diploma in social work. Throughout her career, Rooney has been actively contributing to make a difference in the lives of others. She is currently a board member of Access to Accessibility and a research assistant with the Ontario College of Art and Design, working on STEM-related accessibility and assistive technology projects. She also serves as a board member for Employment and Education Committee with the Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians. She hosts the podcast Equitable Education, and in her spare time enjoys coding, playing audio games and baseball, performing music, volunteering, and spending time with her guide dog, Valora. Rooney, take it away.
Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Rooney, and I will be sharing my screen. So just give me 1 sec to share my screen. All right, I've just shared my screen share and we can get started. We're talking to each other. Mine's down here. So when a technology is accessible and affordable to members of our society, it really helps people to empower them and to help them to do what they really love. And we believe that in Microsoft, we have an opportunity and responsibility to create inclusive technology. So what is accessibility? There are a few different accessibility: digital accessibility, having physical accessibility, things like that. But actually, the accessibility is about enabling people to achieve whatever they would like to achieve. It's about letting people fully participate and contribute, and creating experiences that are better for others. So accessibility and technology empowers people along different spectrums. example, work, school, or even in their personal lives. So we have accessible technology available for people with visual disabilities, hearing impairment, neurodiversity, speech and cognitive disabilities, learning disabilities, as well as mobility and mental health. Our products can help people to maintain and empower them while maintaining their well-being. Accessibility is a responsibility and opportunity. There are over 1 billion people who have disabilities who also need assistive technology. But only 1 in 10 members have access to accessible technology, which means it doesn't allow them equal opportunity to contribute in our society. So think about this way. If you don't design technology for accessibility, you're excluding a large number of population. It's like saying to every 5th person who walks in your door, I don't really want your business. We learn from our experiences. Companies who embrace best practices for employing and supporting persons with disabilities in the workplace outperform from their peers. So during the pandemic, accessibility focusing has become very important. The disability community has faced dramatic difficulties due to unemployment and challenging remote education. And we have learned that having assistive technology has become very important part. So during our first few weeks of quarantining, our disability answer desk had received over 200% of normal calls. Our team's usage was up drastically. And we see that having accessible assistive technology is only available for 1 out of 10 person with disability. So inclusion drives innovation. Designing technology for people and with people with disability leads to greater innovation for everyone. So when we exclude members in decision making, their lives really can get impacted. So we have learned that our accessibility initiative has to be built into our culture and throughout everything we do, throughout the process. And that's why our mission of our company is to empower every person and individual and organization to achieve more. So we believe that our answer desk support provides, and our EDAD, which is our enterprise answer desk, who works with organizations, businesses, and education institutions, provides them support with people with disability with products such as Microsoft Office, Xbox, and Windows, which includes accessibility related questions and use of assistive technology. So our Microsoft has developed built-in accessibility badge course. And this is one way for us to provide all of our employees training that needed to be successful and create inclusive environment for our employees as well as any customers that we serve. So we have a platform accessibility insight as well, which provides any members to provide our developer accessibility feedback, as well as to inbuild accessibility from their design perspective to make sure that content is accessible from start to finish. So we have accessibility checker feature, which will help to find any inaccessible content in all of our Microsoft 365 solutions, such as Word, PowerPoint, Excel, as well. And it provides recommendations to fix any error to make sure that the content is accessible. And also we have alt text option, which can type in any descriptions of visual content to help a person using screen reader to also get the content in accessible format. We also have accessibility user collective research group. And the user group actually provides ideas to make our technology more accessible. And the community is based with people with various disabilities, and they share their experiences to help us design technology that's more inclusive and accessible for all, making sure to have universal design principle in mind. So we have built-in AI cognitive services, and this provides us opportunities to make our products more inclusive. For example, accessibility checker. We also have a closed captioning option available on Teams and a screen reader capability, which makes the platform more inclusive to use. We have blur background as well as text to converter into translation. We also have ease of access setting on our PCs to make sure that PCs are more accessible to use. We also have Microsoft Stream, which provides automatic translation and transcription of any audio or video content. So on Teams, virtual interaction can become more natural. So for example, it makes it more inclusive since it's very natural. So using the camera, it makes people more feel connected and see visual cues that they don't generally get to see on audio calls. Also, we have emojis, GIFs, and stickers for people to communicate in different ways. We also have Immersive Reader feature, which is built into the chat. And this picture in the slide actually is a picture of our accessibility chief officer who is deaf, and she's using Team to communicate and collaborate every day in her daily lives, along with her interpreter. So Microsoft also provides inclusive and accessibility inbuilt features for students with all abilities. So some of the most common questions that we have gained from the pandemic is how can we make our students feel more engaged and included throughout the virtual learning that had been going on during the pandemic, and what tools and technologies that's available for them. So many accessibility features are available on Microsoft 365 and our Windows solutions. So some of the features that we have to provide our students and assist them can also help them with math and communication. So we have Microsoft Immersive Reader, which is available for all type of disability, also learning disability, to help them with comprehending, reading, as well as helping them to develop their literacy skills. Also, we have Focus Assist, which provides distraction reduction and simplifies user interface to allow students focus on the content. We also have a dictation feature, which provides support for writing. So they can use the dictation to speak, and the conversation will be converted into text. Also, we have editing features, which provides to clarify ideas on Microsoft 365 solutions. Also on OneNote, students can get hints to help them solve math equations. Also, parents and teachers can also use this live captioning and translation feature on PowerPoint, which helps them to make the experiences of communication along with deaf community and people who have different language abilities and hearing impairment to be more welcoming. We also have Xbox controller, and it is adaptive controller. So this tool actually provides a gaming experience which helps them, kids or any students, to learn while they're playing a game. So some of the tools that are there are Mindful Night is a medieval interactive world that teaches mindfulness, social awareness, and self-regulation. We also have Minecraft Education Edition, which allows students to play, build leadership skills, and explore and create world. We also have fifth grade. This provides drive connections with fellow classmates, friends, and teachers. Students would record short videos based on topics their educators have created. So as we earlier talked about, video games is amazing way to entertain and also to hang out with their friends. So video games are a way to have fun and also have time with their family and friends. So Xbox have adaptive controller for people and gamers with limited mobilities. So it helps devices make more accessible. So during the meeting on Teams, you can run live captioning, which allows people with different abilities communicate and collaborate equally. And also the interpreter can be pinned to the screen on Teams, which provides people equal opportunity to contribute. Also, you have ability to transcribe your meetings. So that way you can go back to the meeting and review anything you have missed. We also have different ways of presenting content. So built-in subtitles and live closed captioning on your PowerPoint has more than 10 supported languages. Also 60 plus languages when translating content. This feature can be used for audiences who are deaf or hard of hearing. We have ease of access setting on our PC, which allows you to make your PC more accessible by having just few clicks. So we have a narrator, which is a screen reader, and it reads what's on the screen. So personally today I'm using a narrator as I have a visual disability and I'm reading what's coming up on the screen throughout the presentation while going through my slides. So it's a very accessible feature. So you also have ability to make your content bigger using a magnification setting on Windows PC, or to use high contrast mode for people with low vision or anybody else who need to have just a bigger font size. And you can also use your keyboard while using sticky keys, toggle keys, filter keys, or on the screen keyboard. You can also use your mouse to change the pointer size or to turn on the mouse keys to use your keypad as a mouse. All right. So we would like to make sure that every learner is engaged and engage every student in their class, no matter what their needs are. And that's why our accessibility tools can help to support every learner, no matter what their needs are. So we have tools that support students with reading disabilities, learning disabilities, neurodevelopmental problems, and to help them with including them for literacy development skills. So accessibility tools actually improve learning outcome. So our built-in live subtitle can support 10 speech languages. And here on the screen, you see there are a few listed here: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, German, so and so. And you can also convert into 60 plus text translations languages. Also, accessibility checker on our Windows 365 solutions provides recommendations to make sure that the content is accessible for all the learners. Students actually can achieve more with access to the right tools. So learning tools provide learners, despite of their age or learning style, with easy to use features that reduce visual crowding, highlight text, break words into syllables, read text aloud, and provide visual references. Text suggestions actually saves you time, and it predicts word as you type. So dictation actually is a speech to text software inbuilt into Windows, which allows users to input text using a microphone. And this feature is used for so many reasons, and people with so many different needs and abilities. We have Editor, which provides proofing and editing services. We have seen in the past that people with disabilities are not receiving competitive educational opportunities that would enable them to become qualified for technology-related occupations. And we also have tools that are really helpful for people with dyslexia to help them empower and be successful in their lives. So innovation can change what's possible in the future. So AI inbuilt onto our solutions can open more opportunities and make our technology more accessible for people with disabilities and how to leverage technology. So we can have technology where technology can perceive images and sounds and understand it, as it can go learn from it and get better. So we have an app called Seeing AI, and it helps people with visual disability can capture pictures, and it will describe them what the picture is about. Also, it will scan what's around them and tell them the surroundings. So for example, I am moving around my phone and it will tell me what's in my surrounding. Maybe a furniture, maybe a dog sitting on my bed, things like that. So our mission is to make the AI more inclusive for people with disabilities. And therefore, we always continue to gather data from people with disabilities and to also learn from machine learning. Currently, there are data that lacks experiences being shared from people with disabilities to help decide and implement AI to develop new experiences and solutions to assist people with disabilities. So today, 1 second, I might have to share my screen again, and we'll be watching a short video.
Screen share menu. Stop share left arrow plus S right arrow button. Participants cannot see
We'll
your
be
application.
watching a short video.
Mute currently unmuted. Alt plus A button. Stop share left arrow plus S right arrow button. Leaving menus. PowerPoint slideshow dash accessibility narrative walking deck underline Jan 2021 update. To move to an item, press the arrow keys. Ready. Slide 78 dash add year 2019 Microsoft. Heading level 1 add year 2019 Microsoft. Link we all with video. We all with video video. Link animation trigger we all with video. Animation trigger we all with video video link. Slide 75 dash videos. Heading level 1 videos. Below are some videos you might add to your.
My name is Grover.
Slide 78
Sean,
I
my
hope
name
you
is
can
Andrew
hear
Taylor.
me.
My name is Owen, and I am 9.5 years old.
So Owen was born with a rare genetic disorder called Escobar syndrome.
He's had 33 surgeries to date.
I love video games, my friends, my family, and again video games.
It's his way of interacting with his friends when he can't physically otherwise do it.
What I like about the adaptive controller is now everyone can play. You can just say, alright, that's that button, that's that button, that's that button. Perfect.
One of the biggest fears early on is, how will Owen be viewed by the other kids? He's not different when he plays.
No matter how your body is or how fast you are, you can play. It's a really good thing to have in this world.
Slide 79 dash thank you. Microsoft logo white text version image. Copyright.
So
Copyright.
thank you so much for having me today and listening to the presentation. As we see, our technology takes into account experiences from people with disability, and the technology is designed for people with disability to empower each and everyone to be more productive and to collaborate and communicate equally in lives. So that concludes my presentation, and I would like to pass it on to Chase and to see if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Runa, for sharing with us. I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Stop share left
Sure.
arrow plus S right arrow button. To move from items, press up
I'd
down
love
arrow.
to hear how you became interested in the field of technology, what your path looked like, how you became employed by Microsoft, if you don't mind telling us all.
All right. So I actually had been interested in technology since a very long time in high school, but I wasn't sure. After high school, actually, in high school, generally, career like the guidance counselors and anybody supporting the child is, there is this myth that the child doesn't know what they want to do. They're still young at this age. They might want to explore a few options, right? And when the child says, "Hi, I want to pursue a career in technology," it's just not taken as seriously. So when I graduated from high school and started my career, without having extra support around in post-secondary, especially here in Canada, I learned that, the system is very different. In high school, there are more support, and later on, the services that you perhaps rely on, maybe having somebody to help you with, writing notes and things like that. That support is not as available. So throughout post-secondary, I learned, yes, there are gaps in services. There are policies, though, that are put in place, but it just doesn't serve everybody, like, and there are not many people who actually come together to share their experiences and advocate for change, right? And even policies would be designed to help people to be more inclusive and to have experiences that help them thrive. But sometimes that doesn't work out all the time, and the reason could be different for not having equal experiences, because maybe I need some technology or a different ways of doing things. So I faced a lot of hurdles throughout the education system, and like not getting tests on time, not getting materials on time to help me study, and also like when I was doing exams, my screen reader software who the institution was using was ending up expiring, and I had to start the demo version for the screen reader. Every 40 minutes, the computer would shut down, restart again, and I a few times lost the test. There's things like that, like gaps in services and institutions policies are not easy to change, and it's very time consuming. So I learned from my experiences that only way that we can make the world better and provide everybody equal opportunity to contribute in society and empower them is only through technology. And that's the reason why I ended up coming here in technology field. Um, how I got into Microsoft, I applied online and I got interviewed. Yeah, so far.
That's great. That's great. Can you tell us about some of the pieces of technology that you rely on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So as I said earlier, I have a visual impairment. I do have a light perceptions, which means I can see lights during the day, but not at night. So I can see shadows and light. And in my daily lives, I use a narrator, which is a screen reader inbuilt onto our Windows. And also I use dictation. It helps me to convert what I speak into text. I also use Cortana. This is one of the feature inbuilt onto Teams as well, and it is like having a personal assistant, similar to, I would say, Google Assistant and Siri, but it does more than that. If you would like to set a reminder, you can just tell, Cortana, hey, set a reminder for the meeting coming up Tuesday, November 20th at this time, and it's going to give you notifications. It's going to learn from your experiences and provide you information that helps you. What else I use? I use editor feature as well on Microsoft 365 solution. So far, that's what I use. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Let me see if there's any questions from our audience. Audience, as a reminder, if you have questions, please just type those into your question box and those will pop up for us. Also on Facebook Live, anyone on Facebook Live has questions, feel free to put those in the comment box and I can ask those of Runa. I am not seeing any questions, so thank you again so much for being here with us today, sharing the story of Microsoft and what all the things that they're doing and your experience as well. We really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Chase. I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you.
Leaving menus, task switching, PowerPoint slideshow, accessibility, narrative, login, underline, task switching, media controls to move to an item.
And if you'll stop sharing your screen, I will introduce our next speaker.
Audio settings, button drop, stop video left there, alt plus D right there, video settings, button drop, open participants tab, more options for participants, button drop, alt S, your screen share is installed.
Our next speaker is Howard Wood. Howard is the Executive Director of Drive Ohio. In this role, Howard is responsible for developing policies that leverage infrastructure and incorporate technology to improve transportation safety and capacity. Howard has more than 30 years experience in transportation planning and policy in both the public and private sectors. He has held several multimodal planning roles in the Ohio Department of Transportation and started the agency's formal Intelligent Transportation Systems program in 2000. In the private sector, Howard worked for a global professional services firm, consulting in the area of ITS, transportation systems management and operations, freight planning, tolling, and public-private partnerships. He holds an MS in public policy from Rutgers University and a BS in transportation and logistics from Ohio State University. Howard, take it away.
Thank you, Chase. Make sure everyone can hear me first, and then I'll share share my screen here. Am I coming through okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, that's half the battle. Okay. And how about my screen? Is that showing up?
Yeah, we can see it.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. I appreciate speaking to Delaware County today. I'm a Delaware County resident, and not not surprisingly, I'm in my basement working like we all do here during our COVID times, and times that will probably be with us for a while. So I have a slideshow to describe Drive Ohio and our programs and activities. And so some of it is just sort of boilerplate, but that I did in the latter half of the presentation go into some of our thoughts on equity and access for various populations. So with that as background, just an introduction. Drive Ohio is created by an executive order of the governor, and we report, or I report to the ODOT director. So we're part of the Ohio Department of Transportation. Our focus areas are connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles. More and more, we're concerned with electric vehicles and what that means for our transportation system. We have drones and advanced air mobility under our purview. And we also address workforce development and economic development in terms of what does smart mobility mean to the future of Ohio's workforce, and how do we prepare for that? And relatedly, how do we attract smart mobility's companies coming to Ohio? The best example I can give about economic development that really affects us all is that Ohio is the #1 manufacturing state for automotive engines, and #2 for transmissions. Those components change with electric vehicles, and so we're partnering with other state agencies to prepare Ohio's workforce for that future and to attract electric vehicle companies to Ohio. So Drive Ohio was set up because of what we call a broad ecosystem of smart mobility in Ohio. Those are assets such as the Transportation Research Center in East Liberty, Ohio. Smart Columbus came along, of course, in the 2017 timeframe or 2016 timeframe, and was transformational for Columbus. We have a great university system doing automotive research, and federal agencies such as NASA and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base with the Air Force Research Labs that are doing amazing things in advanced air mobility. So Drive Ohio was created to put all of these together and focus first on connected vehicles. And connected vehicles, just to describe it a little bit, essentially is having your vehicle communicate with the infrastructure around you, and think specifically about traffic signals. And what we're trying to do is test various connectivity options and develop applications for safety messages inside the car. So for example, if a wrong way driver would be detected on a freeway by our sensor system, get alerts into the cars that would be affected by the wrong way driver, like an alert. At intersections, and we're testing this in certainly Columbus, Dublin, and Marysville, the applications or the information from the infrastructure are the traffic signals and when they're going to change. So that's, you know, a matter of congestion, safety, but also we are testing, for example, Honda in Marysville, testing an application where the traffic signal detects an approaching driver that's not stopping at a red light, and putting alerts in the surrounding cars to warn of that driver, you know, not not obeying the traffic signal. And so again, these are safety related. We also have pedestrian detection, and so a pedestrian entering a sidewalk or even jaywalking, our cameras detecting that and setting an alert into the vehicle. So that's sort of the connected vehicle environment. The slide here is the smart mobility corridor on US 33 between Dublin and Bellefontaine. And on this stretch of highway, we call it the most, I guess, the most connected stretch of highway in the world. We have over 100 roadside vehicle detectors that can detect traffic and communicate to the vehicles that we're equipping with onboard units to relay these safety messages. This is a test environment right now, but the testing is in concert with automakers like Honda and technology companies like Panasonic, who are developing these smart applications to improve the safety of transportation. So switching gears into the air, we are beyond drones into something that we're calling advanced air mobility. And this is centered around Springfield, Ohio, but has advanced air mobility has tremendous cooperation and partnership with the Air Force Research Labs and our partners in the Department of Development and Jobs, Ohio. But these crazy vehicles I have on the screen here are all of a type of electric vertical takeoff and landing. And it may seem a little like science fiction, but these are testing in Ohio right now. They're moving towards FAA airworthiness certification. And Ohio is probably ground zero for the testing and development of these electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. And describe it a little bit. These vehicles are not an airplane because they don't need runways. They take off vertically. They're not a drone because drones don't carry people. These can carry people, or they can carry cargo, but they're not specifically characterized as a drone. They don't fit the profile of a helicopter because their helicopters are louder and heavier and more expensive, and these are generally lighter weight vehicles. And flying car is a term that's often thrown around, and they're not flying cars because they don't really drive on the road after they land. So not the Jetsons. But as I mentioned, they are electric. They can have a person in them, but they don't need to be operated by a person. They can be remotely operated or autonomous. Again, vertical takeoff and landing. They have commercial off-the-shelf components basically. And again, this is an example where we're testing in Ohio and we're trying to get these companies to come manufacture in Ohio, just as the Wright brothers did so long ago. Another part of the portfolio, just to touch on briefly, I won't dive into it too deeply unless there's questions, but we have Drive Ohio leads an electric vehicle strategy. We've produced statewide plans and assessments of what's needed for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. It includes an economic development strategy, a workforce strategy, infrastructure impacts. As an example, the federal bill that was signed into law, I think on Friday, if not over the weekend, contains $28 million to Ohio to install electric vehicle chargers. $28 million a year. So this is a new era for transportation and for ODOT to manage the conversion to electric vehicles. And finally, there's some policy impacts that we look at for electric vehicles. If we don't buy gas anymore, then we don't pay a gas tax, and ODOT gets a lot of its revenue from the motor fuel tax. More than 95% of its revenue comes from the motor fuel tax. So what does ODOT's mission look like if we have to get revenue from another source? So those are all some of the policy implications of electric vehicles. Now delving a little bit into autonomous vehicle testing, and certainly gets interesting. We have a few different grants that we're managing right now. One is called Rural Automated Driving Systems, and these are vehicles that are going to be tested in Southeast Ohio. We submitted a successful application to the federal government for this program. And the specific idea was that most autonomous vehicle testing is taking place in very controlled environments, either on testing facilities that are controlled, or on specific freeways where the corridor is well defined and a pretty controlled environment. We want to test vehicles in a rural setting where the roads have more curves, more hills, two-lane roads versus freeways, day and night. And the whole idea is to provide data to the federal government on how these autonomous vehicles perform in these environments, because the federal government lacks data for regulatory policy making for autonomous vehicles. So this test is just specific to rural areas. Our focus on the rural areas was why we received the grant, because no one else had thought to test in that environment. So that was that describes a little bit the testing that goes on. We're procuring vehicles right now, and the testing will be in the next year into 18 months. And we're testing both Ford Transit vans and 18-wheel semi-tractor trailers. And these will have a safety driver behind the wheel. So that's what testing is like right now. There's always a safety system in place, a person to take over if the autonomous functions disengage. So not fully autonomous. This is a test. The second one to highlight is the I-70 truck automation corridor project. The same idea here of autonomous vehicle testing, and all to provide data to federal policymakers to regulate, to understand the safety implications and regulate this technology. Here we're testing trucks between Columbus, specifically trucks between Columbus and Indianapolis on the I-70 corridor. And we're recruiting, so I should back up. A lot of testing involves just empty vehicles, driving over the roads and collecting data. In this particular test, we want to see how companies, trucking companies specifically, use the data or use the technology in their everyday operation. How does this affect the driver? How does this help or hinder their operations in terms of delivering freight to their customers? So again, this is a project that's a federally funded project that's now underway. We're in the procurement phase to get the trucks and to recruit companies that want to help us with the testing and really be a guinea pig for how does this technology work for their operations. So that's the I-70 truck automation project. Now I'd like to shift gears and talk a little bit about transportation access. And this is for any disadvantaged community. Drive Ohio spent a lot of time on these efforts, and we've worked with partners at Smart Columbus to test autonomous shuttles, for example. So the photograph here is an autonomous shuttle in the Linden area of Columbus delivering groceries during the pandemic. So this is the autonomous shuttle is another, I guess, niche application for autonomous vehicles that's being developed by a few different companies. And in these applications, the idea is, can we provide better or more transit to places that have access issues, where there's transportation access issues. So photograph here, this was called the Smart Circuit in Columbus, but this was a company called May Mobility, and it ran a little loop around downtown in Columbus autonomously. Again, there's a driver behind the wheel, but eventually, as the technology advances, the idea is there won't be a driver behind the wheel. And so the testing is taking place in Ohio, in Columbus, and other locations, is all moving towards developing or mainstreaming autonomous vehicles, and autonomous shuttles are one example of an application or a market for these vehicles. It's worth it to note that, you know, we're operating on public streets. We don't really have federal authorization of some of these vehicles and technology. They're still going through a process of regulatory rulemaking, and until that's clarified, you'll have safety drivers on all these tests or all these applications, and that's where the technology is right now. However, in some places, some communities, these sort of vehicles are operating autonomously in a closed environment. For example, Florida, a very large Florida retirement community, has a smart shuttle operating autonomously, and that can happen because it's all private. It's not public roads. So you do have specific market applications where these shuttles are operating autonomously now, and in the future they will be, as the federal government regulates or develops the rules and regulations. Autonomous vehicles, we expect, will come to the public streets in the next few years. So then I wanted to dive a little bit into what some of this technology might mean for any elderly, disabled communities, and where we might make a difference. And it's really not just elderly, disabled. It's really, do you have a car or not? And that can be an income issue. So put up a graphic here. It could be a little dated because of COVID, as we know, but this gives you a basic overview of Ohio personal mobility or transportation, and how we commute. And this is mostly, this data is the commute to work data, which is heavily, I guess, investigated and published. So we know a lot about how people get to work. We don't know as much about doctor visits and grocery visits and things like that, and shopping. But in any event, you can see how the car dominates commuting habits. 83% driving alone. There's some carpooling. Work from home is 4%. Again, this is all before the pandemic. And then there's some walk to work and public transit at 2%. So public transit is somewhat dominated by folks who can't afford a vehicle or are not able to drive. Here's a little bit about some car ownership numbers. For the US, percent of households without a car, 8.7%. And that's just across the US, all populations, and it is broken down there. But I had data for Ohio's larger cities, and as you can see in Cleveland, almost 24% of the population or of the households don't have cars. Columbus is 9% and Cincinnati 21%. And I don't know what a Delaware County would be, but you know, there will be, and you probably know better than me, a percent of folks who can't drive, who don't have access to transportation. And that's obviously a concern. So the question is, can technology address transportation access? And I've highlighted some of the technology that we're working on, and I just put it in a table here. So first of all, connected vehicles. How do connected vehicles address transportation access? Well, not much. It doesn't address car affordability. If you don't have a car, it doesn't really matter. So there are safety benefits for connected vehicles, but we're not really addressing the access issues. Autonomous vehicles, again, doesn't address car affordability, but it does open some possible transit options or ride sharing options that we'll discuss. Another trend in smart mobility is shared mobility, mobility as a service, such as Uber and Lyft. And there has been a promise out there that mobility as a service can reduce the cost of for hire transportation, cabs, taxi cabs, or the like. And you also see Ubers and those sort of companies partnering with transit agencies for last mile trips. So there is a hope or a promise that can reduce cost and improve access to transportation, and we can dive into that a little more. And finally, electric vehicles, you know, not really an issue for access. The models coming on the market now for electric vehicles, they cost more, so it'll be some time, but I don't know that it'll make transportation access any better or easier for the population. So diving in a little bit more to mobility as a service, and it's sort of a question or some statements on, you know, how will mobility as a service help access for those who don't have cars, either through disability or income or the like. So on the left side was the optimistic view. A high percentage of low-income populations don't have a car, and so they're taxi and rideshare reliant. And the companies I mentioned, Uber, Lyft, and there's others, they're disrupting the traditional U.S. taxi business. And the hope has always been that this will cost less than owning a car. And it also, these companies also investigate autonomous vehicles. So if the driver is no longer part of the equation in the cost of a ride service, then does that reduce the cost and make the service more accessible? And the answer is, that's the hope. And Waymo is a company, a Google company, for example, and they are testing autonomous rideshare services in the Phoenix, Arizona area. So again, you do see some of these autonomous shuttle or autonomous vehicle entering the market in specific places. And the question is, will that reduce the cost, make transportation service more accessible to the community? And so the flip side is on the right hand of the slide. And this might be specific to low income, but most shared mobility services require a credit card or smartphone for arranging trips. And 8% of US households don't have credit cards. And half of low income adults don't have smartphones. So interesting to think about these issues for our vulnerable populations. When we think about technology, we have to think the next step of, there's still barriers. They can be economic, they can be technology. So we can't just develop technology. We have to think about how technology can or will make lives better. And so we have to think about things like payment options, for example. And then the last note there is that there has been concern that as Uber has increased in popularity, it's hurt the traditional taxi companies, and that could have the impact of having a negative impact on low income or vulnerable populations. So last slide or two here, Smart Columbus had a lot of work put into addressing access and equity. And again, this is from a transportation technology perspective. Smart Columbus developed a multimodal trip application for smartphones. I think I just addressed, that is not necessarily a panacea for low-income populations, but the idea of that application was, if you don't have a car, how do you get from the bus stop to maybe the last mile? And this application allowed folks to plan that trip all in one place and coordinate that trip, and hopefully make their journey better. The only downside was this application was released, I think, in March of last year, right when the pandemic hit. So there wasn't a lot of great data on the efficacy of that application. Smart Columbus also had smart mobility hubs for access to different modes of transportation, including bike share. We mentioned the last mile transit service. We were operating that in the Linden area, and thinking that, a lot of us deal with transportation to jobs, especially in suburban and really exurban areas. We have a lot of new jobs happening on the fringes of our major metropolitan areas, and the traditional mass transit routes don't always reach those areas effectively. And can you have hubs and where there's a transfer between, say, a COTA transit line and some last mile, to a workplace, or workplace is a good example, but also shopping, medical offices and the like. So certainly have planned some of that. And just a few other things Smart Columbus did of note. They provided prenatal trip assistance for expectant mothers in low-income parts of the city. And this was an access issue, looking at data that folks without cars in lower income communities often skip or can't get to prenatal appointments. And that has a very dramatic effect on the health and welfare of their child and of the mothers themselves. So this was really an idea to provide assistance, and they provided, I don't have the stats, but hundreds of rides to expectant mothers, to medical appointments, again, to address this access issue. And finally, they did develop an app for navigation, tying into that multimodal trip planning application. But this had voice prompts and other features for folks with cognitive disabilities. So Smart Columbus definitely, and that was not a Drive Ohio project, but we were certainly interested and watched those demonstrations take place and partnered on some of them. So Smart Columbus did a great job of exploring technology and what it means for access for the community. So I think this might be my last slide, but there is a promise for technology and the disabled community. Drive Ohio had a wonderful intern, Jen Schlegel, who graduated from her master's program from OSU this year. But she provided perspective and did her research on transportation technology for folks with physical disabilities, and she had a physical disability. So we were able to explore that with her and the university a little bit. These stats are more familiar to you folks, I'm sure, but 6 million disabled folks don't have adequate transportation. Again, this is an access issue. If we can provide transportation options, we could enable new employment opportunities for approximately 2 million individuals in the US. And this makes a lot of sense to me. If you think about all the businesses these days that are having trouble filling positions, and here's a workforce that's able and willing, but just cannot access the transportation system. So can our technology, our transportation technology, as smart shuttles, as autonomous shuttles develop, will this be a key to unlock opportunities for this workforce? We sure hope so. And then the final note there is just the healthcare expenditures from missed medical appointments. So it's a health issue and it's an economic issue. And we hope that our work with this technology does a small part towards developing alternatives and options for all of our communities. And that's the focus of my discussion here today. So just a summary slide, connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. We have significant public benefits, and we always talk about safety at ODOT. So crash reduction is probably the biggest promise of this technology. 94% of crashes are caused by human error. And so to the extent that our connected vehicles, our autonomous vehicles improve the function, takes driver error out of the equation, then our transportation system is going to be safer. Second bullet is that some aspects of equity or transportation access are rooted in income, and technology can't really address income issues in and of themselves. There are instances where technology can reduce mobility costs, and that will be a benefit to low-income communities. But we'll have to, as technology develops, as with all things in society, we'll have to monitor what that means to all of our different populations and address equity and inclusion and the ramifications as the technology develops. So that, I believe, is my last slide. Anyone, I want to feel free to reach out to me, howard.wood@dot.ohio.gov, and I'll go to questions and turn it back to Chase.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you for that presentation. A question that came to mind for me when you were talking about, in particular, that smart Columbus circulator with the driver behind the wheel. I guess in your opinion, how long do you think it'll be before we'll see vehicles driving around our neighborhoods without a driver?
I think 10 years or so. And the important thing is, back in 2016 or 2015, there was a lot of companies making a lot of wild claims, and the claims generally said that autonomous vehicles would be everywhere by 2020. And such a broad statement should immediately raise suspicion because it's rather ridiculous. For one example, it takes about 14 years for the fleet of cars in, say, the state of Ohio to turn over completely. So if automated vehicles were all that was sold tomorrow, it would be 14 years to get to a point where we have all autonomous vehicles. Well, we know autonomous vehicles will not all be sold tomorrow. So you can already say it's 14 years distant. So I put that caveat on it. And then I do like to point out that I think this will all be in niches that we don't necessarily appreciate. There's a company called Neuro that's doing deliveries in Houston with an autonomous vehicle on the street, on the public street right now. And it operates at no more than 25 miles an hour. And it has no driver. It works. It does delivery of groceries and the like. So these are the niche type of applications that'll come along. Trucking is another likely niche that's going to come along. And we do have, and I know people laugh, but we have robots at Ohio State, on the Ohio State campus and the Bowling Green campus, that deliver food to dorms. You know, these little robots are about the size of a cooler, roll along the sidewalk and deliver pizza to dorms. So that's how automation happens, is in specific niches.
Great. A question from one of our attendees: who is at fault if there's an accident?
This hasn't been worked out. It's the best question. So far, you know, you obviously have some institutions involved here: the insurance industry, the regulatory industry, automakers, consumers. No one has really stepped forward to say, here's how we're going to regulate it. The insurance industry is on the sidelines watching, and they'll make a move when it becomes real in terms of automation. But right now, the fault or the liability still rests with the operator of the vehicle and not the technology company. And, you know, the hope, I think it's a reasonable hope, is that automation would be so safe that the company, just say General Motors, that has the automated vehicle, if something happens, would be liable as opposed to the owner of the vehicle. And I say it to hope because the hope is that that technology would be so much safer than the human that it wouldn't be a big cost or deal for society or to that company because crashes would be so rare. The summary is that the insurance industry is simply standing by and not committing to anything right now until this becomes more real.
Are there any other questions for Howard while we have him here? Okay, seeing none. Thanks again for your time. Thanks again for sharing all that you have today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Chase. Everybody have a great day.
At this time, we're going to move on to our presentation from the Ohio Tech Ambassador Network. We are running a little ahead of schedule, so we don't have everyone logged on just yet, but we do have George Myers, who is the grant director. George, if you'd like to start by telling us some history about the program and what you all do.
Absolutely. Here, let me. Chase, if you can start my video if you'd like. All right, great. Thank you very much, by the way, Chase, for this invite. This is a neat opportunity for all our group to kind of talk about what we do and what we have done and some of the plans that we have for the future. So for anyone who might not be familiar with the Tech Ambassadors program, this is something that officially got started right at the beginning of 2020, sort of got derailed a little bit by COVID. And then we kind of got back on track in January of this year. So the whole idea here is that we had a core team of folks and we hired some wonderful tech ambassadors who are adults with developmental disabilities living in Ohio, who are passionate users of technology. They use technology in many different ways to help make them more independent, and in some ways even as a convenience, like many of us. And their mission was to just share their use of technology with their peers to help encourage folks to give technology a try if they haven't, to maybe answer questions about how they use technology in their own lives. And we had a whirlwind schedule of 13 different virtual events that we did from January through May of this year. Our grant officially ended on June 30th and then was renewed by the state of Ohio for 2 additional years. So we are going to keep this thing going until at least June 30th of 2023. We have additional funding from DODD that we're really, really excited about that is going to enable us to grow this program. So one of the things that we're doing right now is interviewing for new tech ambassadors. Our goal by the end of the program is to take the original 5 that we had, who are all going to stay with us, and add another 5 tech ambassadors to that list. So over the last 2 weeks, we've conducted some great interviews. We got some very impressive applications, had a chance to meet a whole bunch of really great people. And our core team over the next few days, in fact, we will meet about this tomorrow to sort of compare notes on all of the interviews that we did. And our goal this fall is to hire maybe 2 or 3, and then additional tech ambassadors next year to get to that additional 5. The other really exciting thing that we hope to be able to do that we just weren't able to do during this sort of COVID period is to have some in-person events. Virtual events like this one are really great. They have a lot of advantages. You know, people can attend from all over the state. You don't have to worry about transportation and getting to a physical location, those things. So we're going to continue to do those. But there is just something about having an in-person event where you can meet people in person and talk to them that we think is great. So we're looking forward to the opportunity to be able to hold those around the state. Our website is ohiotechambassadors.org, and we will have a schedule of all those events once we get that planned. We anticipate being able to release a schedule probably within the next month. That will in part depend on who our tech ambassadors are that we hire. So let's see, a couple of other new things I wanted to make sure I mentioned before we turn this thing over and let our tech ambassadors talk for a bit. We are planning to put together a short monthly newsletter about all of our activities and some of the technologies themselves that our tech ambassadors use to distribute out. We anticipate being able to send that mainly to county board staff. I mean, anyone will be able to sign up for it if you have an email address, and we'll make that available on our website. But we're thinking specifically about folks who may be a little afraid of technology, folks who are a little technology averse, maybe don't trust technology. And we're hoping that SSAs might be able to distribute this newsletter to those folks as a way to reach them, because they may not want to come to a Zoom meeting like this one or a seminar. I guess there are two more quick things I want to mention. One, and I'm going to hopefully not be too secretive about this, but we got some news from the folks at DODD, Cal Corbin, that is going to be a big announcement. We'll just put it like that. We hope to be able to make this announcement by the end of the year, but within the next 6 months of 2022, we do anticipate having, what will be a pretty impactful and big announcement in terms of some new things that we're going to be able to do. All right, one more thing I wanted to just show everyone. Am I able to share a screen here?
You should be able to.
I'm going to do that. All right. So I wanted to show everyone a page at our website so you can see this. As I mentioned before, this is ohiotechambassadors.org, and we added this new page. This literally got finished just yesterday. So this is ohiotechambassadors.org/request. And we're going to actually post links to this on the main part of our page, and we'll probably post some things on social media with this link in it for those of you who may want to take advantage of this. This is actually going to be the way for not only individuals and families, but anyone professional like SSAs, people who are running advocacy groups. We found during the spring of this year that we just got so many different requests for people to have our tech ambassadors come speak at different events, this one being an example. But we've got this page that people will be able to come to and just fill out a little brief information, name, email, phone, and then, how many dates you might want them for, what those dates and times are, a brief place for you to type in some details about what you might want to have those tech ambassadors do, and then a place to select individual tech ambassadors or multiple tech ambassadors if you have specific people in mind. So this is going to be the way that folks request time. And I want to make sure I say this. A big part of this program is the capability of our tech ambassadors to actually interface one-on-one with people. So if you are an individual and you have questions about technology use in your own life, I would encourage you or a family member even to come and fill this form out. And, we would love the opportunity to have one-on-one meetings or meetings with, maybe a person in their team, if there's, value that we can contribute to those things. So just go to ohiotechambassadors.org/request if you think you might like to have some of these tech ambassadors time. All right. So just to overview what we're going to do here next, we're going to let our tech ambassadors who were able to join us today, we've got 3 of the 5 here. So we're going to let them tell their sort of tech story for you. And then after that, we're going to have a little section where, I may get back on and I'll kind of pose some questions for our tech ambassadors. And we hope to have some time at the end if those of you who are attending have some questions for them. And we may actually have some questions for you that you can, post answers in the chat on. All right, so let's just, without any further ado, I'm gonna just call out and have Marcy Straughter, who is in the Central Ohio region, go first. And Marcy, why don't you just take a little bit and tell us your tech story.
Hi, my name is Marcy Straughter, and I'm from Franklin County. My tech story began, I used to have 24-hour staffing, but then I got with a roommate, and we decided to get remote support. And so ever since then, I've been doing remote support like all the time. Like I just moved away from my roommate about 2 years ago, and now I'm doing remote support every day. And I just love it. And remote support has helped me in so many ways. I have a smart thermostat because in my apartment, the numbers were really small. It makes it bigger and I can control it. And then I also have a Ring doorbell who I can see who's at my door and with the camera. And I also have a smart door lock. And I also have a portal which I can talk to my remote support providers face-to-face on it and friends and family. And all this has helped me be more independent and has helped me just live on my own independently and make it on my own. And I really love it. I lived with my mom for 26 years till she passed away. I thought I was going to give up on everything, but I blossomed on. And at the end now, I have remote support and technology to help me, to guide me in my life. And I can be independent with that than having a family member. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marcy. That's great. How about we have, I was going to say Robert, but Nathan, why don't you take a turn here? Tell us your story.
Thank you, George, and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Nathan Turner. I am the Tech Ambassador for the Northwestern Ohio region, and a big part of my tech story is focused around low-cost and no-cost technologies, especially digital assistants, because I believe that they present an incredible opportunity for people with disabilities to live more independently. And I was actually inspired to join the Tech Ambassador program as a result of my day job, which is being a web quality rater for TELUS International. And as part of that job, I get to evaluate simulations of digital assistants and determine how effective they are to meet user need. So through that experience, I know a lot of what digital assistants can do. And when you think about interfacing with a phone, a digital assistant can essentially do everything or almost everything that you might do with your hands. You can do everything from send text messages to scheduling appointments. You can have conversations with your assistant. You can look up all kinds of information. You can also have it do everything from adjusting your thermostat to locking your door. You can have an interface with cameras, and all of these are part of a broader smart home setup. But it just gives you a brief idea of what you can do with the power of your voice and an algorithm. And I think that just presents tremendous opportunity for people with disabilities to live better lives while also decreasing the strain on support staff and helping to alleviate the direct support crisis.
All right, excellent. Robert Schumache from Cincinnati. How about you take a minute and tell us your tech story?
Sure, thanks, George. Like George said, I'm from the Southwest region of Ohio, down here in Cincinnati. My tech story really begins when I was in school. The high tech back then was a closed circuit television, which I'm visually impaired, so I don't read typical print. So they would use the closed circuit TV to enlarge it in hopes that I could read. To fast forward to 95 is when I started getting introduced to computers and the software that was available called JAWS that read all the text that was on the screen of the computer, which allowed the computer to be accessible to me. So I just started out playing around with it, learning it. And then I entered college in 2000 and then just took the assistive technology to a whole different level because it was very computer based. In college, we were still using audio tapes for books, but within a year or so, it evolved to you could get your books emailed to you and it would be all electronic. So I went through 5 years of college and 2 years of the master's program, strictly using accessible technology. And I say that to say that, you know, the technology that is available today can be used for anybody, no matter how old you are, how young you are. These young people today have access to computers and phones when they're kindergartners, 5 years old. That was unheard of when I came up. Oh, that was my Alexa. Sorry about that. But I use multiple sources of technology. I use Alexa, I use the iPhone, I use 2 different computers. I use any audible technology I can because I don't see the screen. I can't see people's faces on it or anything like that. So I'm strictly audible. I can type. It's wonderful. It's been incredible. And being a tech ambassador is one of the most incredible things I have ever done, you know, in my advocacy efforts throughout the state of Ohio. I just love the fact that I had the opportunity to become one. So thank you, State of Ohio, Kyle, George, everybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. All three of you, Marcy, Nathan, and Robert. So let's just take a second, and I have some questions I want to pose to our tech ambassadors to have you guys respond. And by the way, I would encourage anyone, if you're listening and you do have a question for any of our tech ambassadors after just hearing those stories, feel free to put those in the Q&A, and we'll field those if we see them. So here's the first question for all three of you, and we'll give you each a turn to respond to this. What do you think it's like to be a tech ambassador, and specifically think about the role, and Robert just mentioned this, the role that advocacy plays in being a good tech ambassador? Who'd like to tackle that one first?
You can go ahead, Robert, if you want to.
Sure. I think the advocacy plays a huge role, because if you think about it, as a tech ambassador, we're advocating for the usage and of the accessible technology to help the people throughout Ohio and everywhere to not be afraid of the technology, to use the technology to help them do whatever it is they want to do in life. I mean, anything you can think of, there's technology that can assist you to do it. The app world, I mean, there's an app for everything. You know, any kind of information you want to know, they have apps for it. So it's important as a tech ambassador for us to advocate for the uses of technology and take our experiences with the technology and demonstrate, encourage, and say, hey, this is available. We can help you find whatever it is you want to find.
Awesome. Marcy, what did you have to share?
One thing that helps me, like in advocacy, helping my friends that are self-advocates about using technology, is to show them that they don't have to be afraid. They don't have to be afraid of the portal. They don't have to be afraid to use a smart lock. And then also, if they need any questions, they can talk to us. And some people are scared, like for remote support to come look in your home, like in your bedroom. I say, they don't have to look in your bedroom. You don't have to worry about that. They put it somewhere that is safe and where you want it. So I believe all this is tied into speaking at conferences that I do with self-advocates. I believe as a tech ambassador, which I love being a tech ambassador, that I'm helping self-advocates open up to technology and using technology and show how to be independent. Because some people don't know how to do that. Some people don't know that they can stay at home by themselves. Some people don't know that they can have their remote support right there, and they don't have to have 24-hour staffing. There's a sense of independence that they can use with this technology. And I show my friends and all the self-advocates across the state that they can use technology, and they can also be tech ambassadors just like us.
Awesome. Nathan, do you have any thoughts on being a tech ambassador and advocacy?
I do. I mean, it's honestly one of the best things I've been able to do. It's sharpened my focus toward the community integration of people with developmental disabilities and really made me commit, to the intersectionality of technology, how it can support people with disabilities to live better lives. And you and I have had conversations about how when I first came into the program, I really thought that my role was going to be predominantly tech focused, right? Because of my experiences and because of how digital assistants can really help people with disabilities. But as we've gone on, I think we both realized how important advocacy was and really developing skills around knowing oneself and communicating assertively and helping teams with problem solving and educating about rights and responsibilities as a basis to begin conversations with SSAs about technology and really wanting to have those experiences. So advocacy is absolutely a critical element to this. I would say what we do is 50% education about technology and 50% education about advocacy with the people that we work with.
Great, great. I guess I'll just add a little footnote to that. You know, one of the reasons that we felt like it was so important for us to have a place on our website for folks to come and request meetings. You know, I'm thinking specifically of SSAs there. So if you've got families you're working with that you've talked to about technology, they have doubts, they have, you know, reservations or fears about using things like remote support or really any assistive technology at all, we would encourage you to go and fill out a request. You know, have our tech ambassadors come and we could do a virtual meeting with the folks that you're working with, and you know, maybe that will make a difference for them to be able to just speak to their peers one-on-one and to those family members. All right, great. Next question. Let me just sort of piggyback really on that first question, because it came up. You know, people. Marcy mentioned this about people who have you know, fears or doubts about technology. What would you all tell folks who have specific doubts about technology in the areas of, let's say, reliability? Is, you know, what happens if the technology fails, that type of thing? Okay, Marcy, you got your hand up.
Like if my technology fails, like the other day, my portal wasn't working. So what I did was I called my remote support provider who helped me walk through it. And then if anything else is not working, my remote support provider will come to repair it. Just like if you had a plumber or somebody to come at your house or something, and they help with that with assistance. And if you need help with a technology like iPad, a tablet, or anything in your home, I can dial remote support and they're right there, and they can take me step by step until my provider gets there to help me.
You know, Marcy, I appreciate that. And I want to actually ask you a couple of really specific questions on remote support, because that's such a big part of the technology you use in your life. You know, we know technology isn't always perfect, right? So there has to be a backup plan when it fails. And I love that you mentioned that you can just call them. I'll add this. The remote support providers themselves are going to know when that technology isn't working. Their connection into that home is going to be apparent to them when it's not working. So they may actually reach out to you. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. That ever happened, Marcy?
Yes, it happened to me the other day.
Okay.
My camera wasn't, I've had internet troubles. That's one thing you can have with technology, is internet trouble.
Right.
And I had to set up my Nest thermostat. It wasn't working correctly. And then I have a camera. I have a Nest camera, which is just in my home, just in the living room and the kitchen. They don't look in my bedroom. And it wasn't working. So my remote support could see, and they called me on my portal and they said, "What's wrong with your camera?" I said, "I don't know. It might be because of this new Wi-Fi, because I just moved in here." And so what it was is that my remote support provider took have me not worry, because I used to be scared to stay home by myself. That's one reason I got the cameras. And they kept one of the lines open on the portal on the Facebook, because they have the Facebook app. The app and the little thing messenger, and I talked to them, and the owner left one of the window things open for me and just had it so I can and it left it on there through the middle of the night, since my camera wasn't working, and I am nervous about that. And he just wanted to keep me safe. And I think that's one good thing about remote support is you don't have to be scared. I know that my providers, I have a long time, and my providers are looking at me right now up there through that camera. So they're making sure that I'm okay. If they see me not okay, they just call me on my iPhone.
That's great. So for Robert and Nathan, technology failures when you're not a remote support user. Maybe you guys can speak to the reliability of technology and what you guys do in your lives if something isn't working.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Oh, you can go, Robert.
Go
That's
ahead,
fine.
Nate.
Okay. So in my circumstance, I know that there's always a lot of free information out there about how to troubleshoot common things with technology. And since I don't actively use remote supports because I need a lot of physical intervention, a lot of my remote supports are focused around what my digital assistants can give me. And oftentimes the issues with that can be resolved by simply just reconnecting to Wi-Fi and or remapping with the app to make sure that everything is connected and communicating properly. But you do need to have a closed Wi-Fi network for that to work. So the moral of the story here is that if you go to a search engine and you get an error with something or you're experiencing something, the likelihood is that someone has experienced the same thing and they go to support forums and share their experiences. You can look at this support forum with or without help from your team or a consultative expert to try and resolve at least some of the relatively straightforward concerns.
Okay, great. How about you, Robert?
Well, this is great that this is actually being discussed, and that all three of us have different experiences. Like I said earlier, I'm strictly or primarily auditorial. So being able to call Amazon about Alexa, or call Apple about the iPhone, or call Microsoft about the computer, that has been a blessing for me. To be able to say, hey, this is occurring with my phone. What's going on? They can log into your phone, your computer, your Amazon, your Alexa, and, troubleshoot. They can do the troubleshooting, and they could walk you through auditorily the steps to get everything working up. And then there's no need for the physical person to be actually here at your computer. And that builds confidence, at least for me anyway, that hey, when there's an issue, I can get a result. Now, when my internet went down, about a month ago, it was out for about 8 hours, so I couldn't, because the personal assistant, the computers are hooked to the internet. Without the internet, there's not much you can do. We'll make phone calls, so you just have to be patient and talk with the internet provider to help them get it back online.
Okay. And that's good, and that's part of what we hope to be in this program is real about issues that happen. You know, technology is very wonderful, and that doesn't mean it works 100% of the time. Nate, you have something you want to add?
I just wanted to echo a lot of what Marcy and Robert were saying about the independence that technology brings. I know that folks initially can be a little apprehensive to use technology because of privacy concerns or other areas, but once they get accustomed or acclimated with that technology, and waivers do have a consultative element in them beyond what we provide as tech ambassadors, where someone like a app technologist might come out to you and give you a thorough evaluation of your personal situation in combination with your disability to really look at how technology can help you. But once you get acclimated with how to use your piece of technology, you're going to find that you use it more and more, hopefully more and more independently, and you're going to have the dignity to maybe be able to manage your finances independently, or set reminders, or set, medication checks, all kinds of different things, along with adjusting the light bulbs or drapes or unlocking the door. So yeah, the possibilities are just endless.
That's great. And I wanted to maybe just add as a footnote, even if you are not a person who uses remote support, the companies that provide those technologies can provide assistive technology to you outside of remote support. So there's, a list of 9, 10 of those organizations that operate in the state of Ohio. So if all you wanted to do was get an Amazon Alexa or some Google Home equipment, they can not only obtain that, come out and set it up in your home, but also train you on how to use it if that's a need. So, all right. Let's see. How are we doing on time here, Chase?
I got 11:02, George.
We're fine on time as long as you guys have more to offer. It's totally up to you. And I know Courtney has a few questions to ask as well as our outreach advocate whenever there's a chance for her.
I'll tell you what. I have one more for our tech ambassadors, and then Courtney, I would love to hear whatever you have. I would like to hear our tech ambassadors comment on this. What advice would you give to our new tech ambassadors coming along who are going to start with us next year? Go ahead, Marcy.
So get ready to work and have some excitement and have fun and really get to use your technology and really show the meaning, what it means to you to have it.
Excellent. How about you, Robert? You're unmuted.
I'm sorry, George, what was the question?
Any advice you would have for the new tech ambassadors who are coming along here in the beginning of next year?
Yeah, sure. Just be very receptive to people's questions. You gotta have the willingness. You have to have the willingness to share your story, and knowing that it can help others. Our ultimate goal is to be supportive of others and help them get to where they want to be with technology and their independence.
All right, awesome. Anything you want to add to that, Nate? What advice would you have?
In addition to echoing everything they've all said, just being a really active listener to feedback and questions that we get, being willing to share stories and experiences and present, and just having an open mind about the possibilities of technology and sharing your experiences and listening to feedback and being willing to adjust accordingly, which I know you and I have talked about, and that's something that you were grateful for with me, just kind of sharing experiences with my accessible van and my durable medical equipment and how they help me to be independent. And just, it got me thinking about technology and assistive technology in a different way. And I think that our new tech ambassadors are going to have to embody that same type of creativity, because I do think we're at a lynch point with community integration, and we just have an incredible opportunity for technology to do great things for people with disabilities in terms of employment and just connecting with their communities in general.
Absolutely. And, I want to really compliment not only Robert, Nathan, Marcy, but our other two tech ambassadors who weren't able to join us today, Chris Cooley and Tanner Huff, on the great job that you all have done on really just kind of giving people a window into your lives, letting them see the technologies that you use and what they do for you. That's what I really feel like is at the heart of this program.
Well,
all right, Courtney.
To follow up,
add something? Go ahead, Robert.
Just to follow up on your comment, George, some of the things that we have spoken about as far as our technology, that's not even the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we could talk forever and it would not cover everything that we all experience with our technology. I use my phone in the community just to navigate because my vision is so poor. So I rely on the fact that my phone is charged and I have the appropriate apps for navigation, and it helps keep me safe in the community.
Absolutely. All right, Courtney, you got some questions for these folks. Let me turn this over to you and have you ask those.
Hi guys, my name is Courtney, and I am the outreach advocate at the Delaware County Board of Developmental Disabilities. And I also have a disability, and I also use a bunch of adaptive technologies. So I do have some questions for you. One of my questions is, what is one piece of technology that you use that can be improved in some way? And what is one piece of technology that you love to use and you would not go back from using it?
Great. Who wants to tackle that one first? All right, Nate.
So a piece of technology that I use that can constantly be improved, I think, is Dragon. Naturally speaking, it's really great for somebody like me that has a stable syntax and just an easily understandable voice. But for folks that have more prominent communication disabilities, Dragon can really present, and voice dictation options can really be a barrier for them. And it's unfortunate because they can do so much for people with disabilities, but the promise of that type of technology, any technology that relies on that, is held back because of its inability to help people with more profound communication disabilities. And I know that as part of my work, I get to try and help improve that, but just the progress has been slow. And I'm really excited now that, as manufacturers start to design their own chips, that they're going to be dedicated processing cores for voice dictation and voice algorithms. So hopefully that will improve in the years to come. And I think a technology that I could not live without is probably my digital assistant.
You use Google Home as you use multiple ones, right, Nate? But Google Home is kind of your primary one, isn't it?
Yes, I use multiple assistants, but Google Home is my primary one, the Google Assistant. And I think you'll find if you develop a smart home that you may want to choose an ecosystem and stick with it because of the integration.
Great point. Great point. How about Robert or Marcy?
I would agree with Nate. probably one I rely on the most is Alexa. I'm an Alexa user, and I have 1, 2, 3 Alexas, and I have one hooked to the TV, one hooked in the office, and one in the bedroom. And I use all 3 of them for different things. They're all connected together. They are very helpful. You know, and there are things I could do that I never could do before independently, with finding addresses and information and bus schedules and all kinds of stuff. There's so many things that these personal assistants can do. And I just started working with Alexa probably 5, 6 years ago. And I wouldn't, you know, Google makes one, Apple makes one, but they're all very similar. But again, they're all different. So that one I couldn't live without, and the other one I probably would not. That could improve would be Siri. Siri on the iPhone is not a bad assistant, but if it was at the same level as Amazon or Google, it would be a hell of a lot better.
That's
I
great.
agree. I agree.
How about you, Marcy? Do you have a technology you couldn't live without and one that you think could be improved?
I love the portal because it's big like a tablet. It's easy to see, and I can talk to friends and family on it and remote support. I can talk to remote support. I can play games with them. I can do different activities, talk to them about my day. They help me with my script, with my public speaking. And the one that annoys me is, I'm not going to say her name, but the A word back here. She's nosy. She gets in your business.
She does. She definitely does.
I was talking to my boyfriend last night. She was all up in the conversation.
That's great.
The negative aspects of always listening, perhaps.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying to develop these digital assistants so that they're not so reliant on the wake word. You know, and in some cases that means they're always listening to a degree. And I think privacy is a big part of the discussion with technology. So I think that's maybe one real way that we help people become more acclimated to technology. And if I cut Marcy off, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to do that.
It's okay. Yeah, that's one thing that gets me. And then another thing that gets me about the technology is the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I think we've all had that experience.
Yes, since if you live like in southern counties, city counties, it still gets you.
Yeah,
and I don't,
sorry,
I don't like it the way Zoom knocks you off.
Yes, I totally get you guys, because when Wi-Fi goes, all our technology goes, and we depend on that stuff. So I totally understand that problem, and I also understand the dragon, because I use that a lot for my work in my daily life, and sometimes she just does not understand me, and it gets very frustrating.
Yeah. What other questions, Courtney?
So another question
Courtney, you're muted.
You got muted, Courtney. Did you hear it, Courtney? You got muted.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Another question I got from Facebook is from a parent. They have a 19-year-old that is dependent mostly on them, but they want to know how they can use technology to make him more independent.
What a great question. Does this person, do you know, is their goal for him to live on his own?
So what the question that I got was, my son is 19 and codependent. How can I begin to use technology to help him become more independent?
I won't, I'll allow the tech ambassadors to answer this, but I would just kind of put in here, this would be a wonderful opportunity, I think, for that person to visit our website, fill out a request, and have us, you know, maybe get on and talk to the family in person. I think we would probably start out with a lot of questions about the situation, but what do you tech ambassadors want to add in there?
Oh, go ahead, Robert.
Ladies first.
Okay. I would tell them to, if they wanted to reach out for remote support, look at all the remote support providers in the state, go on DODD.com. Also use Tech Ambassador and all those resources that we have. And just remote support is a good way to start to make the independence.
I guess I would echo what George saying, you know, go on our website, fill out that form, and we can actually set up a date and time to consult with you and have a discussion about what it is the son wants to do from this point forward. And just by having a conversation about his likes, his dislikes, his fears, his ambitions, his goals, we can come up with some technologies that could assist him in those efforts, and then talk about resources that we may know of that can help him reach those technology goals.
Anything you want to add, Nate?
I think I would just echo what the two of them have said, but also say that, you know, we're more than willing to help that family start a conversation. We're not subject matter experts, but we do have a lot of personal and some professional expertise in many different areas. I think that we would, as you said in the beginning, ask a bunch of questions about their interests and skills and abilities, and try to figure out how they want to live their good life. And then from there, have a conversation about how technology might be integrated in there, and identify some community resources to access funding, whether that's through a waiver or outside of a waiver, maybe with a stable account or something, among other possibilities.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on that by saying, you know, the true subject matter experts on the technology are really the remote support providers. And again, those folks can be a resource even if you don't end up using the remote support service. So that would be one of the things that we would be probably really likely to do, you know, were we to meet with this family, is try to find a good fit for them in terms of a remote support provider who can maybe visit the home and actually, you know, talk in specific terms about technologies that could help.
Another question I had, guys, for you guys is, what technology would you like to see in the future that you think could help you in the future?
What was the end of that?
I said, what technology would you like to see in the future that you think could help you in your life, that you would like to see in the future, maybe be created, or
That's an easy one for me. I would like to see an autonomous wheelchair, power chair.
Yeah.
Something that I could say, take me to a certain address, and it would, ask me, are we walking? Are we catching a bus? Are we catching an Uber or whatever? And then it would plan out the route and echo back the navigation. I'd use an app that will tell me, not step by step, but block by block, street by street, what streets we are coming up on, what intersections, what directions, what locations we pass. So I know where I am at all times. So having a autonomous power chair would be awesome.
That would be really cool.
Awesome. Any Marcy or Nate, you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, sure. In
Yeah,
addition to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Marcy.
I would like, even though it is out, but I would like to have a super stove that talks and it helps you without staff. And they
Ooh.
have some like that now, but I would like one that like talks and like have like different recipes on there that you can push, and then it'll tell you like what the ingredients are and get it, and they'll tell you to get it out this cabinet.
Love
Because
it.
I like to cook.
I love it. I love that idea too. That's awesome. Another question that I got from Facebook, guys, is,
Oh, let Nate answer.
oh yeah.
Thank you. I
I'm
wasn't
sorry,
going
Nate.
to. I wasn't going to push. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry, Nate.
Oh, that's all
So
right.
I think I would have about 3 or 4 different aspects of technology that are on my dream list. I really want voice dictation algorithms to be more accessible, as I've already said.
Mhm.
I would like to have Robert's autonomous wheelchair and
I
just
know
a
that's right.
transportation infrastructure that is emboldened by technology that would allow people with disabilities to go almost anywhere with a variety of mobility options. And I think most importantly for somebody like me, I would want a form of advanced robotics that would be able to help me with my mobility needs in terms of getting out of bed, but maybe also with advanced meal preparation. If it had access to the ingredients, I would want it to make a sandwich or whatnot.
Yeah,
That's
you get
awesome.
Rosie the robot.
I'm
Yeah.
just thinking of like a pair of bionic arms that could do everything from help me out of bed to meal preparation to medication administration.
Be excellent.
That would be awesome. I think that could help a
Yeah,
lot of
Nate, that-
people. Yeah. One other question that I got from Facebook, guys, is how does Alexa help you with your independence?
I know the first person who probably wants to answer that.
So I think digital assistants can help with independence in so many different ways. And you're going to find that depending on who you are as a person and what digital assistant you have, every person may have a different use case. For someone with cognitive disabilities, digital assistants are great for spelling and proofreading and just looking up general information, or even if you don't have a cognitive disability, it's great for that as well. For someone with a physical disability, digital assistants help with home automation routines if you have the other equipment mapped to it. If you need help with basic reminders, scheduling appointments, you can do all of that via voice. You can purchase things if you're comfortable uploading your like a credit card or a debit card to the assistant, you can purchase things by voice, which is great for delivery and not. So there are just so many different things you can do with a digital assistant. You have to think about what you want to do and what you need, and then we can help you get started with that brainstorming process. I know for folks with cognitive disabilities, I showed this off in one of my tech ambassador presentations. You can actually set up an entire routine. If you can't control it with voice, there are processes that you can just tap on the screen and do a whole entire good morning routine. So they might unlock your door, open your drapes, potentially start your coffee if it's set up like that. Maybe play some music or the news. So as I said, the possibilities are endless.
Great. Who else?
And
Robert, you make extensive use of Alexa, right?
Oh yeah, a lot of what Nate just spoke about, I use Alexa in editing. I use her for spelling and definitions and research a lot. She's pretty good with that. I even have it connected to my Sirius XM satellite radio, where I can listen to any football game, baseball game, even soccer if I was interested. And you can stream all kinds of different, like Apple, you can stream through Alexa, you can stream TV shows if you have an Echo show, all kinds of things. Anything you can think of, like Nate said, there is an Alexa skill that can enhance it. And they're adding new skills all the time. I mean, you could, I have like 5 alarms and they're all set to different music instead of annoying alarm. So you can have soft music or, one of your favorite rock and roll songs or whatever. Like you said, it's endless. Whenever you want.
Great. What do you have to add to that, Marcy? I know she annoys you sometimes, but
Yeah, I hope she doesn't talk. She's annoying, but she is good for something. She helps me with my recipes on my cooking blog. Like if I say like a food recipe, different recipe I'm looking for. If I wanted to know about the weather, she tells me that. I have a Spotify account and I have it on there and I play music, and I just got a new Ring doorbell and she says who's at the door and I can see a picture of it, and so that's really cool. I just got that.
awesome.
So
Courtney, do you have more questions?
No, I was gonna say, George, you can also, like, it tells you somebody, it rings and it's someone's at your door.
Yeah.
I do have one more.
And I just wanted, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you, Courtney.
No,
but
go ahead.
I just wanted to say that a lot of these services are available at no cost, or you might be able to use them with advertising mixed in. Or if you want to pay for apps, the digital assistants integrate nicely with a variety of paid and unpaid apps to have a more seamless experience.
Good point.
So me and Chase start to plan the Technology First conference well in advance. So I was wondering if you guys had any ideas or suggestions on what you guys would like to see at the next Technology First conference.
Good one. Who's got some ideas you want to chime in there?
And
I don't know. Maybe Tech Ambassadors round 2. Maybe in person. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Maybe
You know?
have all the new tech ambassadors and the current tech ambassadors together, and also maybe have a robot.
That would be a great. What about a live visit to a virtual visit to a smart home where you could actually have demos during the conference? Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, it's funny. Me and Chase talked about this. So we are getting a new building, hopefully in a couple years. And my dream is to be able to have like all the adaptive technology in one room, so people can come in their building and try out all the adaptive technology before they buy it.
Wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, hands-on is always better than
Yeah.
I know I'm a very hands-on person, so.
All right,
And
wonderful.
any closing remarks from anybody? Thank you so much. We really appreciate all this wonderful insight.
We just want to say thanks for inviting us. This is always a fun
Of course.
thing, and we appreciate it. Thank you guys for hosting us and putting it on.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was our pleasure. Thank you.
All right, well, now I'm going to turn things over to our superintendent, Christine Hodge, for some closing remarks.
So good morning, everybody. As Chase said, I'm Chris Hodge and I'm the superintendent. It's my pleasure and honor to serve in Delaware County. I want to thank you all for joining us for our third annual Technology First Conference. As you know, last year we started this event virtual in the height of the pandemic, and we learned so much that by hosting it virtually, we can have more people involved, and there's so much more opportunity for people across the state to participate. So I'd like to thank once again our very generous speakers, and most importantly, our tech ambassadors and Courtney for delivering such an informative panel discussion. I learned so much from hearing all of you speak, and I really thank you for being a part of this. And I just want to say, you know, my favorite tech piece of technology is the Ring doorbell. But you've all motivated me, even you, Marcy, to think about the Alexa. So we'll be looking at that in our home. I want to also thank the members of our tech team committee here at the Delaware County Board of Developmental Disabilities. They worked very, very hard to plan our tech conference. As you know, our goal is to support people to live as independently as possible. We know now that technology is becoming an increasingly more important piece of this puzzle. When we have businesses like Microsoft and Drive Ohio evolve to be more inclusive with their technologies and the services, they actually raise the bar for other entities to do the same. And as more users begin to take advantage of our technology and services, it encourages future development and investments. We know here that assistive technology is incredibly useful for people with and without disabilities. So let's all do our part and help mainstream these opportunities to become users, so more people can have access to these great resources. So again, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I really hope you enjoyed the conference, and I look forward to seeing you next year as well. So have a great day, everybody, and thank you so very much.